Hello and welcome everyone. So in this video what we're going to do is try to test our gameplay abilities and gameplay effects in our multiplayer setting. So to start for multiplayer, what I'm going to do is just select this network player start and just duplicate this over here. And for the play settings, what I'm going to do is go to active play mode and change the number of players to 2 and change this to play as client. For players client, you get a dedicated server running behind the scenes and your clients connect to that dedicated server. I had some issues with this play as listen server, so I'll not be using this. Instead, I'll be using play as client. Okay, and then I'm going to select this new editor window pi. Okay, so 2 players have spawned and you should see we have some problems with our projectiles. So if I launch my projectile, it's visible in client 2, but it's not visible in client 1. And similarly, if I move to client 1 window, you can see the projectile, but the client 2 cannot see that. Okay, and it's also throwing an error. Okay, so just to fix this error, what we're gonna do is we check say is valid, and if it is valid, only then I want to add this to viewport. Okay, let's just test this. Okay, that error is moved. So now we're going to do is make this projectile actor replicate towards the clients. And to do that, what you want to do is just go to your class defaults and check this replicates. Okay, now this will present us with another problem. Okay, so if I test this out, what you should see is that we'll have 2 projectiles on client 2 and 1 projectile on client 1. Okay, so the client 1 can see single projectile, but the client 2 sees 2 projectiles. Okay, now to fix this, what you want to do is go to your abilities and GA projectile, and for this spawn BP projectile, what you want to do is just check if it has authority, and only if it has authority we want to do this. Otherwise we do not want to do anything and rather just end our ability. Okay, compile and save this, and now if you play, we should see just a single projectile for both client 1 and client 2. And right now this projectile isn't dealing any damage to our character, so we're going to add our gameplay effect for this projectile that is going to be sent out through this. So just go back to your content browser, right click, create a new blueprint class, and I'm going to search for gameplay effect, and this is going to be this one, and just name this to GE underscore projectile damage. Okay, I'm going to open this up. Okay, save this, close this, and open up again. So it opens up like this. And what I want to do is go down to this gameplay effects and add a modifier for this. And I am going to modify the health of the target. And what I want to do is add like, let's say -20 to the health. There's no option for subtract, so you have to use this add and just set it to -20. Okay, compile and save this. Now the proper way should be that you should add these grant tags and effect asset tags, but just to keep this simple, I won't be using these, but you should add these if you want to have some, for example, buff and debuffs to block this application of this damage. You should use these tags. Okay, and going to our GA projectile, I'm to use my GE projectile damage class. So what this is going to do is create an instantiation of this gameplay effect and then pass it along to this projectile. So this ability blueprint does not need to know or does not need to handle this gameplay effect application on the target. Rather, this is going to pass along this to this BP projectile actor, and over here we see that we are applying the gameplay effect spec to self. By self, this is the overlapping actor. Okay, so let us compile and save all of these and just test this out. Okay, so if I apply the damage, you can see his health is decreasing for the client 1, and similarly for client 1, if I shoot the projectile towards client 2, his health is also decreasing. Okay, so it's working in multiplayer setting. Now let's make this a little bit interesting. What I want to do is, instead of just subtracting -20, what I want to do is, like for example, my player 1 could have attack damage of 20 or 30. So I want to do that, execute that inside of the calculation. You can use like a gameplay effect execution calculation, but a simpler approach would be just to make this, instead of scalable float, attribute based. Okay, and if you open this attribute based magnitude and change this coefficient to like -1, and we are going to add our backing attribute like base attack damage, and this is going to be from the source. Okay, but there's another problem with this. If you go to our BB projectile, there's no source or target information over here. We're just applying this to ourselves. So what we're going to do is change this, drag out from here and say apply gameplay effect spec to target. And for the target, what I'm going to do is this is going to be my target, and this is not going to be my target, and over here. So my source is going to be this target, and the target is going to be this target, if that makes sense. So what I want to do is get the ability system component of the instigator, basically the person who is launching or spawning this projectile. So I'm going to say get ability system component. Now you can add an isValid check if you want to, but I know that my instigator is activating this ability and should have a valid ability system component. So I'm going to plug this in over here. Okay. And to test it out, what I'm going to do is just change this data table initial attributes and change this base attack damage to like 50. If I haven't clamped it at anything less. Okay. So if I test this out, in theory it should decrease like 50 value from the health. Okay, 2 hits and he's dead. Okay, so in this way what you can do is base your damage on the properties of the source, the attacker, and this is the way that you handle your gameplay effects. So this is it for this video, and in the next video what we're going to do is just start creating our next ability and understand actually how our these events work for on health change, and we will actually be using on speed change, this one, speed multiplier change. Okay, so we'll be looking at this in the next video. So this is it for this video. Thank you very much.